Welcome back, everybody. As you may have noticed, I am currently moving out of my apartment. So sometime in the near future, you'll see me in a different setting. But that's neither here nor there for the sake of this video. As you might have guessed from the title, this video is going to be talking about playing Dota with the motivation to win. And going into this video, I'm making the assertion that the title states that I believe playing to win, if that's your motivation, will inevitably make you lose more often than you otherwise would. Of course, not every game. So this is a video that I'm recording because I've noticed this is very common so far in people that I've coached and talked to within the Dota dojo. Not everybody, but I also believe it's a very common sentiment within the Dota community as a whole. Let's ignore gaming for the sake of this, but in the Dota community, what I've observed is that oftentimes people care very much about winning more so than anything else adjacent to the game itself. What I feel like is like the characteristic quote or like mantra that I've heard before within the Dota community. Now, I used to embrace this myself, or I used to feel this way, is the idea that even if I were to win a bunch of games in a row, a single loss is more painful and miserable than the pleasure I experience winning. And so when I think about that, it's like, okay, so I've even felt this before. If I win 3 games in a row and then I lose like one heartbreaker where we're winning and then we kind of throw and then we end up losing a crazy 60-minute game, and the heaviness and the devastation almost that I feel at the end of that game, it's like, wow, I won 3 out of 4 games today, and I had an exciting back and forth game, and all I remember is how shitty this feels. So this video is talking about that, and I'm going to do my best to lay it out why I'm making this video in the first place, and also the thought process I have between why I believe playing to win is so detrimental and destructive to our enjoyment and performance within the game. So the first part I would like to talk about is I feel like my lesson in regards to this really started when I engaged with stoicism. And I believe that is a buzzword that a lot of people throw around. And I believe it's often misunderstood, or at least interpreted differently than how I would interpret it. So I would like to preface my interpretation of stoicism and how it applies to winning a Dota game for the sake of this video. So the reason, or what I think about stoicism, is that it's the idea that we cannot control. Like, we need to focus on the things that we can control and do our best to worry about or focus on things that we cannot control. And the reason that I've found this to be so impactful on my life is I think it's really important when it comes to motivations and goals. Because if my goals and motivations are only achieved or driven by things that are outside of my control, then inevitably my motivation will fluctuate. My goals and my ability to achieve them will fluctuate based on external factors that I cannot control. So I found that the first step to kind of addressing this idea of stoicism is to look at my goals and motivations and ask myself this simple question. If I 100% do everything that I can within my power, not play perfectly or perform perfectly, but that I try my absolute best, will I be able to accomplish this goal? And so when I think about my goal is to win this Dota game, I alone in this, like off the top of my head, can name 10 things that I do not control that could potentially lead to me not winning the game. 4 of which, very obvious ones, are my teammates and how they perform within the game, their mentality and their approach. And 5 of which is also opponents and how well they play, the heroes they pick, decisions they make. These are just some of what I believe to be nearly infinite things that go into winning a Dota game that are not within my control. So that's kind of step one for how I view playing to win Dota. So usually I like to preface the why I'm making this video at the start of the video rather than after I've already started my explanation. And the reason I think it felt right for me to do it now is because I think if you are curious or interested in what I've had to say, you're still probably here. And I'm sure there are plenty of people who have either watched up until this point or have already left by now, that the second they heard me say, playing to win is like all that matters. Like, why would you not want to win? Basically, I'm not here to convince you. I'm not here to tell you that your approach is wrong. I'm not here to tell you my approach is better. What I'm here to tell you is that I believe my methodology of teaching and the way that I'm going to be doing things in my coaching, in my classes, in the Dota dojo as a whole, within the community that I'm trying to build, is centered around finding the driving force for the decisions that we're making. For instance, I had a coaching session recently where the guy, or is in a class, where the guy was playing Faceless Void, and he chronoed really early in a fight. And objectively, I was just like, well, your teammates who are responsible for dealing damage during the chrono, they weren't there. So why did you chrono? And what it took was me asking several why questions to find out that he had previously been told by his teammates across multiple games that he wasn't going to fights enough. So he felt this pressure as a carry to show up to more fights and have more impact in fights. So he wasn't thinking about what teammates are there for the Chronosphere. He was thinking about, I got to go to this fight and I got to go in now. And when you hear that, as the person who's saying it as well, it becomes abundantly clear what's driving your decisions. And what I've noticed and what everybody, says Dota's a mental game is that your decisions, while the reasons you can make them are valid in the sense that it's understandable, you don't want to be late to the team fight and piss your teammates off, but are those reasons that if applied across numerous different scenarios will lead to good things happening, right? Or successful things, I guess you could say. I don't like using the word good and bad. And so, if my motivation for playing the game of Dota 2 is about winning, I believe that there are a lot of things that we can learn from wins. And I believe that there are a lot of things that we can learn from losses. And that the things we can learn from the game have virtually nothing to do with the result of the game. That instead, they have to do with our own performance, our own mindset, our own decision-making, and what drives it. And these things are completely independent of whether or not you win or lose the game. So by having our motivation and goal be to win the game, I believe our mentality is significantly altered in regards to our perspective of reviewing the game and how we move forward and learn from it. So what I'm trying to get at is that if you're within the Dota Dojo community and you're here to learn from me, or you're here publicly chatting in the forums, if I see signs that you're playing to win or that you care more about winning than anything else, I'm going to have some sort of conversation with you about this. I'm not going to come to you and tell you you're wrong. But what I've found is that when people don't agree with me on this, my method of teaching doesn't work. And also, they end up finding me kind of annoying because I won't shut up about it. And I believe that this ideology is one of the core ideologies of the way that I teach and the way that I view the game. And so, long story short, the why of this video is to decide if this community is for you. I'm not here to sell you on the community. I'm here to help you and anyone else that's interested in my methodology of learning and improving win more games by virtue of focusing on other things. And really recentering our focus to what is our driving force within playing a game of Dota 2 or anything else we do, for that matter. So now that I've kind of given you the why, the long, what are we, 10 minutes into the video, long drawn out why, I would like to just give some food for thought about what I believe the detrimental aspects of playing to win are. So I was thinking about the fact that with Dota players, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of them have this mentality that, like, no matter how many wins you have, that one loss can be so painful and devastating, and it can just ruin your day. And I was thinking about, if you compare that to somebody who plays Elden Ring, who I've played a lot of Elden Ring, and I died to Melania like 300 times. And then I beat her one time, right? I only killed her once. And after effectively losing 300 times to Millennia and then beating her one time, I felt amazing, right? And I feel like that's the common sentiment when playing games like that you feel amazing after that one success with many failures. And I believe that that's how life generally is. That if you look at the grand scheme of life, life is a lot of failures, quote unquote, things that don't quite work, followed by the one way that you find that works for you. And for me, just talking about it, I'm like, that's exciting. Like, everything I'm doing is just an attempt to find what works for me. Like, really reveling in that one time that it just clicks, that one time that it all comes together. And I just implore you to ask yourself, what's the difference between playing a game of Dota 2, trying your best and learning from every iteration of the game that you play, compared to a game like Elden Ring, where you have 300 failures with one success and the result that feels? Now, what I would like to propose is that a lot of this is the fact that we're playing a multiplayer game. I think a large role in this has to do with ego and self-worth that are tied to MMR. And that if you were playing Elden Ring and every time you died to Millennia, that you had a friend behind you telling you how garbage you were and that you suck at this game and you should give up, that you would probably have a very different experience playing Elden Ring than when you play by yourself. So another driving force, which is what I talked about with the Faceless Void example, is fear of other people judging us, fear of other people's opinions of us, fear of letting them down, basically anything that has to do with other people. So this idea that if your goals and motivations are things that are affected by other people, your success to achieve them or not, if your reasons for doing things are affected by other people, then how would you ever be able to consistently apply something that you believe is the optimal way of doing things? How would you ever be able to be consistent with the fundamentals and the application of the knowledge that you have? And that's something that, because of Dota being around for so long, and I feel like that the knowledge that people have far exceeds the consistency of their ability to apply it, over many iterations of coaching people, I feel very inclined to make the hypothesis that our lack of consistency is due to these things, these worrying about other people, these factors of toxicity, all that. And the goal of this video is that when I teach you guys, or when I'm trying to communicate to you about Dota 2 and all the mental aspects of it, I want you to see, at least from my perspective, that anything that's talking about other people and what they're doing and what they're thinking is not benefiting us in order to grow, improve, and win more, right? What I believe is that we must observe what they're doing and respond to it, just like we would in any literal external stimuli that you see in real life. I'm walking on the street, I see a car coming, I stop. That is observing stimuli and adjusting to it, right? I would walk across the street if there was no car. That's a very basic example, but thinking about it as when your teammates say or do something when they're playing their hero, and you say, like, this guy's griefing the game, this guy's ruining the game, that's the same as saying, this guy's fucking hogging the road. Why is he driving his car down? We're assigning an assessment, a judgment of the person's actions rather than just observing their actions. And I believe that once we've concluded what we believe to be the judgment of somebody else, we're no longer able to learn from the situation. So my entire methodology of teaching that's really transformed my approach and helped me grow happier and healthier and honestly better at the game has been focusing on how often I am dwelling and thinking about and judging things that are outside of myself that effectively aren't going to help me get better at the game. So the point of this video, as I said, is to effectively communicate to those who would like to kind of know what I'm going for here with the teaching mentality of the Dota Dojo. And I totally understand there's going to be those of you out there that just don't agree with this. And that probably means that it's not the best place for you to learn from. It's not that I want you to leave, but you're probably not going to be able to learn very much here. And that's fine. And there's also those of you out there that perhaps are interested in trying to embrace this, but it also took me like 3 years to even get to where I am now. It's not like I'm done. So I want you to know that all I care about is that you see the merit in this if you do. I don't want you to force it. I don't want you to feel pressured that you have to. I want you to be like, oh, that might work for me. I could see the benefits of what BSJ is trying to say here. And I'm happy to sit here and work with you guys because as I've said that initially my actions in the Dota Dojo unintentionally were trying to separate the good from the bad. And not what we're trying to do here is we're not trying to separate the good from the bad, the toxic from the PMA. You know, we're not trying to label anybody here. We're just trying to encourage a growth mindset in a way that I believe is conducive to improvement and growth, right? And of course, my approach over time will shift. So it's not like everything I say now is canon, and I'm not trying to speak it as such. But when I look at this scenario, it draws me to my last point, which is that it has to do with rewards and punishment. A lesson I've learned quite recently that has transformed my life, quite frankly, is just how detrimental punishment is, as well as rewards, and that these things are the opposite sides of the same coin, and they go hand in hand. The existence of rewards implies the existence of punishments. And that even if you're not intentionally inflicting punishment on somebody, by giving one person a reward and withholding it from somebody else, that is also in itself a form of punishment. And I've learned something that intrinsically has felt not wrong. Wrong is the wrong word. That has felt that it wasn't right for right, that it didn't serve me to think this way. I've felt this way for some time now. And I've always felt this idea of why do we have to be afraid of punishment or promised a reward in order to do something? And what I've realized and learned is that that's effectively what society's taught us to think like. That's just how we've been taught. Like you go to school to get good grades, you go to your job to make more money. You know, you play a Dota game in order to win. You try to get really good at the piano to get the approval of your mom or dad. You know, these are just several versions of doing something for reward. And the mantra that I'm giving, I'll probably make an entire video at this at some point once I feel like I can articulate it better, is that if I do this in order to get that, like I play a Dota game in order to win, with this being the Dota game and that being the win. There are basically, I've read the book Punished by Rewards, and there are countless studies that have been cited in the book that display that if I do this to get that I will lose interest and lower my performance at this. And what's so interesting about this with the argument that I've just stated is I believe that if you're playing Dota to win the game, then you will become worse, demotivated, and unhappy at this, which is playing Dota. My example that happened in my life that I looked at in retrospect, this was something that happened like a year ago that I tried, was I really enjoy sweets. I really have a sweet tooth. And I've been going to the gym consistently for like 3 years. And I was going 4 days a week, nonstop, no question. And the first time that I stumbled with regards to my routine of going to the gym, interestingly enough, this is hindsight 2020, was that I was trying to figure out a way to healthily fit sweets into my weekly routine. And I thought to myself, how about every Friday, Saturday, I give myself the privilege to go buy a cinnamon roll or some other treat or something after I go to the gym. And what ended up happening after like a month or two was that I actually lost motivation to go to the gym. And I was so perplexed back then. I was so perplexed. I was just like, I haven't had struggle motivating to the gym. So all I knew was that I should remove that thing because I only added that one thing. That was the only difference I made. And looking back on it, when I said, I'm going to go to the gym in order to get a cinnamon roll, I stopped caring about this and I only cared about that. I lost motivation to go to the gym, something I had been doing consistently for 3 years. I've since restored it, of course, but wow. For me, like hindsight 2020 was a real bitch there. But also enlightening to some degree. So if you've made it through all the way through this video, thanks for stopping by. That's my one real life example that I would love to give for now. And my goal here is to open dialogue about this. There's a chance that I sent you here as a way to give you my perspective on something that could spare both of us, you know, a 25-minute back and forth. And I would love to hear what you guys have to think about this. I would love to hear, you know, discussion about this when I'm talking to you in my classes, around the dojo, asking questions about it. This is, I'm creating these type of videos to stimulate discussion. Like I already said, that is what I'm going for. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you got some things to think about from this video, and I hope to see you guys around the dojo. See you in the next one. Bye, guys.